So have you ever noticed or wondered how some people are able to stay leaner year round even without intense dieting? So today I'm going to use a bit of science and a bit of anecdotal research to break down why that happens. So I'm going to briefly touch on some things such as genetics, muscle mass, metabolic rates, hormonal differences and lifestyle factors, maybe one or two other things too. I'm going to start off with number one, which is genetics and body fat distribution. So with genetics, there's a concept called the set point theory, which suggests that our bodies are genetically predetermined to fall into a certain weight, a certain body fat range that they naturally settle into. So for me personally, that's around like that 15%. If I go higher, I'm not hungry at all. I kind of have to force myself, to be honest. Whereas if I go lower into that 10%, then I have to be very regimented, very super organized, say no to a lot of social events, and in general, it's just a lot harder to stick to in terms of hunger levels. And then we have body fat distribution, so genetics play a big role in this. So for example, we have male and female, so generally speaking, males tend to store more fat in their lower abdomen, the apple shape, and then females tend to hold more fat in their hips and in their thighs, more pear-shaped. Delving into that a bit deeper, genetics do play a bit more of a nuanced part. So some people, when they lose fat or gain fat, they might get it in their cheeks first, or they might get it in their arms first. So and that has a big visual impact on how lean someone looks when they're wearing clothes or when they're topless or whatever. Like for example, in the winter, if someone tends to not store as much fat in their cheeks, then maybe in the winter when they're wearing a lot of clothes, they look leaner just because their face is more chiseled, but actually they store more fat in their abdomen or whatever it is. And then we have resting metabolic rate, so essentially just how much you're burning at rest, and this will differ from individual to individual, of course. So naturally a bigger person will spend a lot more energy just through maintaining itself basically than someone who's lighter. So obviously someone who's 100 kg is going to burn more energy just maintaining themselves compared to someone who's 50 kg. And keep in mind, their resting metabolic rate will drop. So let's say you've got someone who's 100 kg and then they drop to 80 kg, their resting metabolic rate, their energy expended to maintain their functions basically will drop too, because they now are a smaller person. Some factors that influence resting metabolic rate are muscle mass, your age, even your organ size, to be honest. So that would be a long-term strategy in terms of tips that I would recommend to increase your resting metabolic rate, and that would be to increase lean muscle mass. So I do want to drop in this study too. So you can't, per kg, I think you're only going to burn an extra 20 calories onto your resting metabolic rate each day, which in the short term obviously isn't a lot, especially considering how hard it is to put on muscle. I mean, a kg, if you're like 10 kg, okay, that's an extra 200 calories, which is a bit more, well, is a lot more significant than 20, but to put on that 10 kg is gonna realistically take you a long time, especially if you're doing it naturally. So that's more of a long-term strategy. So keep that in mind. So in the short term, I wouldn't say it's that effective. You'd probably have to add in your cardio too. Then there's hormonal factors and body fat regulators. So we've got leptin and ghrelin, which is your satiety hormone and your hunger hormone. And essentially in leaner individuals who tend to be leaner, they tend to have more favorable balances of these hormones, whereas obese and overweight people tend to have not as balanced levels. And studies even show that people who are obese and overweight tend to be leptin resistant, so their satiety hormones basically just not cooperating with them. So when they eat, they tend to still be unsatisfied, and then will continue to eat and overconsume, and then lead them into the position that they're in. And of course, we have habit and long-term consistency. People who tend to be leaner, people who tend to be in shape, they have just made a habit out of it and have just done it over years. People who are in amazing shape have been consistent for years. People who tend to be lean and athletic have been doing their thing, or have just been staying active for years and made it a habit, ingrained it into their lifestyle, and made it more of a long-term plan rather than a quick fix, rather than a 12-week transformation, rather than a short-term fix. they've built it into their lifestyle. And I think a big key of that is setting realistic goals, finding what works for you, finding the right exercises, and then also just making sure that your meals are balanced and well proportioned. And there's also that social and parental aspect too, so growing up and just, your surroundings and how that affects you too. Obviously, some parents aren't as educated as others when it comes to, feeding their kids, and then when the kid kind of grows up, they just kind of take those bad habits with them, not being educated on eating the right foods and not being active, not being encouraged to have an active lifestyle, exercising, all that stuff. And then you've even got the psychological aspect too, so the whole mindset and how you see your body and just that self-consciousness. Like, people who are leaner, they tend to have a bit more of a positive, they have a bit more of a positive outlook on their body and how they perceive themselves. And when they eat, they're kind of nourishing their bodies rather than, looking for that short-term gratification and kind of opt for that hedonic eating. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the video. I do want to say that before I leave, even though genetics do play a big part in this, there's still a lot you can do. There's still a lot that's in your control, and you should never take being unhealthy or being obese as something that's out of your control. There's a lot in your control that you can do. There's a lot in your control that you can do. So don't be going and making no excuses and justify why you're obese or unhealthy or whatever. There's a lot you can do. The power's in your hands ultimately, and you can make a change and be your best self. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Don't forget to comment your own experiences with body composition and any experiences you may have with this in the past or right now. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe for more fitness content. Catch you in the next one. Peace.